Christmas, you filthy animal.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Ah, yeah. Merry Christmas, you filthy animals. Is it starting to feel a bit Christmassy?
Oh, probably is now at this stage. Monday of Christmas week.
Oh, and you've changed. Good morning to you, Dave.
Good morning to you, Ger. How are you?
So when we start the show, which a lot of people probably don't know, we're listening to OTB Sports Radio, and invariably the last thing that's on is Rishtard's Rugger thing, and it always puts you in a good mood for the start of the show. So I'm just a word of advice to everybody out there. You should listen to OTB Sports Radio. And
Absolutely.
not Christmas FM, obviously, which, you know, no one's listening to at the moment.
Yeah, it's on in the McIntyre household every morning, Ger. Don't worry.
And Christmas FM.
No.
Right.
OTB Sports Radio. We're not allowed to watch screens in our house before the boys head to school, so
that's a good idea.
I can't actually watch you anymore.
That's a good idea. We've got a good show lined up for our last live show. I mean, maybe there's a live show tomorrow, Tommy, is there? No, there's no live show.
Quick shake of the head.
Christmas Eve? No. There will be a show of some sort for you, obviously, on Christmas Eve. But is anybody else actually still working out there? Traffic on the way in this morning, I left home late and I got in early. There was no traffic.
Yeah. I asked my taxi driver this morning that exact question, and he in his words, he felt that he and I were the only two people working today. So,
right.
Maybe that gives a clue as to how many people have decided their working week was done on Friday and they can now enjoy the week's festivities.
Do you think they're going to regret that? Do you think that this is one of the longest Christmases of all time and that by the end of it, everybody will be like, oh my God, I need to get out of here?
I think by virtue of the fact that Christmas Day is it is Wednesday, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's probably the saving grace. I think if Christmas was on Thursday, although maybe if it wasn't Thursday, there would be more at work today. But
that's the thing. Everybody got to work. Everybody got to work on Monday and Tuesday if Christmas is on Thursday.
So yeah, it will seem pretty long. There's no creche, there's no childminder, there's no Montessori, there's no school.
No.
So yeah, today and tomorrow will be spent enjoying the build-up with the children.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be great.
Well, we've had illness in the house for the last 2 or 3 days.
Oh,
so
balls.
Hopefully it's out of the way now and we can get...
You might have stayed at home today if that was the case.
No, I am feeling...
We could literally phone this one in.
I'm a bit tired, but I'm operating at 100% capacity. It seems like I didn't get to bed at all. I was at Vicarage Road yesterday, but no, we're flying.
We did a Christmas Dadcast. Tommy's asking if there was one. We did a Christmas special Dadcast, which was safe for broadcast while the kids are listening mostly.
Yeah, we're very conscious of our responsibilities in that regard.
We are now.
Yeah.
We weren't always. Not going to lie to you, we weren't always conscious of our responsibilities. That's how life works, right?
Yeah, well, you learn. You grow.
I mean, you definitely grow. I'm not sure if you learn.
Well, what's that old phrase? I never make the same mistake twice. I just keep making new ones. That's pretty much us.
Or reclassifying my old ones so that it doesn't look like I'm
recategorizing them, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Look, it was a pretty interesting weekend of sport on and off the field. Completely overshadowed, I suspect, by the racism in the Spurs-Chelsea game. The warning went out after Rudiger told Azpilicueta, his captain, and Azpilicueta told the referee, and the warning went out. And it kind of, what happens subsequently is largely overshadowed by the debate in the Sky studio, where Gary Neville points out that racism exists in the highest office in the land in the UK. Now, he was very smart about how he talked about it, because he talked about both parties. He talked about, obviously, there were allegations of anti-Semitism against Jeremy Corbyn across the course of the campaign. And by talking about both of them, he gave Sky cover, because he was immediately saying, this is a problem which afflicts everybody.
And he also said, when he was speaking about the two political parties, that they have been accused of racist doctrine, as opposed to calling them racist, as opposed to making it very pointed and very specific. Yeah,
now there are very clear instances where Boris Johnson has used racist terms about people.
Yeah.
Miguel Delaney has a brilliant piece today, which I urge everybody to read. It's either carried in the Indo or the...
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it's from the London Independent. And he just points out that Johnson has used racist terms in the past, and it's, you know, there's no... You can't dress that up. But what Gary Neville did was talk about both of those. And obviously the Dave Jones, the Sky presenter, comes in and then says, whatever the phraseology he was, I'm compelled
the views
to
of
point out
Gary Neville, not Sky Sports.
And Gary Neville goes, well, do you not agree with them? And he says, well, you know, that's completely irrelevant whether or not I agree with them. I'm just here trying to have a balanced conversation about this. And like, everybody attacked him because, rightly, that is a flabby use of language. There is no balanced conversation about racist abuse. There isn't.
There is a right and a wrong.
Yeah.
There's no middle ground.
Exactly.
There's no grey area.
Now, the difficulty, just momentarily, and this is largely irrelevant in the overall scheme of things, but I'm sure he had somebody in his ear when Neville was talking.
Well, there's no question he had.
It's hard to hear what somebody says exactly when somebody is talking to you at the same time. You should try it.
I imagine the message was not being delivered to him in the usual measured way a producer might deliver a message during a broadcast.
Well, maybe it's like, you got to get in here, you got to get in here, you got to get in here. And not throwing the producer under the bus either, because the producer has his job to say, like, because if he's just said something about just Johnson or just Corbyn or whatever, then maybe there is a requirement to go, okay, we need to put the fact that there is another side to the story here.
Dave Jones has got a lot of abuse and criticism for that moment yesterday. I feel very sorry for him.
He apologised on Twitter last night, in fairness. Sky, as soon as he apologised, which was clearly a coordinated response, Sky retweeted his apology and said, Sky abhor racism. So,
but as you say, that's just a minor aspect of what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
It's just an additional add-on to the event of the afternoon.
It's not great when Gary Neville is the last person who you can turn to and say, right, come on, somebody needs to show some leadership here. Football needs a lot of leaders. Rudiger clearly was one yesterday. He came out very eloquently on Twitter, spoke about this and said, we need to continue talking about this because this is going to be, here, I'll read these for you then. From the bottom up, it's really sad to see racism again at a football match, but I think it's very important to talk about it in public. If not, it'll be forgotten again in a couple of days, as always. I don't want to involve Tottenham as an entire club into this situation, as I know that just a couple of idiots were the offenders. I got a lot of supportive messages on social media from Spurs fans as well in the last hours. Thank you a lot for this. I really hope the offenders will be found and punished soon, and in such a modern football ground like Tottenham Hotspur Stadium with dozens of TV and security cameras, it must be possible to find and subsequently punish them. If not, then there must have been witnesses in the stadium who saw and heard the incident. It's just such a shame that racism still exists in 2019. When will this nonsense stop? We've all seen those fan pic, the camera that takes a picture of every fan and you can scroll in and see your face, and it's not going to be that hard to find these people, I would assume. And again, the stadium is equipped with technology as Spurs Stadium. It's
blanketed in CCTV for security reasons, obviously. So you would think it will be possible to pick out the individual offenders. It's really depressing, and it's very hard to know what to do. Like, Antonio Rudiger has been incredibly measured in his comments there, and it is obviously not a Tottenham Hotspur thing, just as it was not a Manchester City thing when Fred was racially abused, just as it was not a Chelsea thing when Raheem Sterling was racially abused. These are individual idiots, and I think that's maybe the difference between. It's very easy to throw the Bulgarians and the Serbians and the Italians for the issues that they have with regard to racism under the bus, and then say, if what happened yesterday in North London happened in, Sofia during an international, there would be uproar. Whereas because it's the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, we aren't as quick to point the finger. But there is a slight difference in that I've covered a lot of those international games, and there are hordes of people in the stands in unison doing it. And so for me, there is a bit of a difference there, that this was probably just one idiot, as was the case at the Etihad Stadium when Fred was taking that corner kick.
Yeah, but it's nice. Fair enough, it's one, but it's not nice that case anymore. It's not one individual.
Oh no, it's like all too regular and all too common.
Exactly.
But what do you do? How do you? What is the next step that needs to be taken here?
Take them off the pitch. Invest in...
Which should have been the protocol, as we understand it.
Invest in education around racism. Racism is learned. People learn racism from their parents and from the people around them, and it's taught, and it's used by politicians and political parties to grow their own power base. That's where racism comes from. Racism doesn't come from any of those crappy bullshit narratives that you get sold, right? So, like, if football, particularly the Premier League, which is not just a bunch of white English people playing football the way it was 35 years ago, it's now one of the most multicultural sports things in the world. It may well be the most multicultural sports tournament and competition in the world, where literally the best young footballers from every country aspire to play there. So there is an opportunity for the Premier League to stand up and say, hang on a second, we're going to be the world leaders when it comes to doing this. Every club is going to have to invest a couple of million for the local communities in making sure that there are outreach programmes, pilot programmes, and that we all at least begin the process of having a conversation, and we're not going to let it disappear. And we're certainly going to have a zero tolerance policy, and we're going to reward people who tell us that they've seen this and can point us in the exact direction of it. Like, they have
The Premier League are not the governing body in this regard, which I find very difficult to understand. And this is a point that Gary Neville made yesterday. Like, the FAA have opened an investigation. Where are the Premier League on this?
Well, I think
it's their league, it's their division, their clubs, their players, their TV rights. What is happening with the Premier League at the moment? And why is it down to the PFA, the FA, the police and the clubs in question?
I think all of those should be involved, and the Premier League need to be very strong. And this is their opportunity to do that now, where they're being called out and where they're being asked to do it properly. So,
and another worrying aspect of it for me is that I would think, and maybe some of our viewers and listeners can get onto us on this, that if I was at a game in Dublin or Kerry or anywhere in this country and a player from a minority background was being abused, that person would be outed on the terraces or in that stand, that there would be somebody in that area of the stand that would go to a steward or a member of An Garda Síochána and they would bring this to their attention.
I don't know if we're any better. I don't think we are.
Well, I haven't seen or heard it happen while I've been at a sporting event in this country, so I don't know what the reaction would have been. But it clearly is not the done thing over at these Premier League grounds, where if someone beside you is behaving in this way, that you actually try and do something about it.
Yeah, so exactly. Self-policing has to improve. The fact that people think that they're going to either get away with it or that it's okay to do this in this large crowd.
They're empowered to do so.
Exactly, and they're empowered to do so by the current political discourse that has been completely led, I would argue, by the Tories in England over the last 4 or 5 years. Like, certainly they have adopted the clothes of Farage and his cronies, and again, I would urge you all to read Miguel Delaney today, but football is reaping what the rest of society is sowing, and he's making the point it's no longer good enough to just say football is a reflection of society. Football needs to change and to be an agent of change, and the Premier League has a vested interest in being an agent for change. And unfortunately sometimes it comes down to what vested interests there are that are actually going to make a difference. To briefly go back to football, you were at the Man United Watford game.
Yeah.
What a weird league season we're having where Watford can suddenly close the gap at the bottom of the table to make the bottom of the table fairly constricted again.
Yeah, I think is it 6 points now? They're adrift of fourth bottom. Nigel Pearson working his magic dust again.
Is it magic? Is it?
Well,
his brutal hammer fist of...
Well, the result is magical from Watford supporters' point of view. Whatever about the...
Remember that time he fought the Wild Dogs?
Whatever about the manner in which he's delivered it. But no, they were aided and abetted in a huge way yesterday. I don't want to detract from Watford's win because they were just so committed yesterday. From start to finish. Guys like Will Hughes, for example, he had an enormous game yesterday afternoon. The two central defenders, Kabasele at the back in particular, Cathcart, they were phenomenal. Ben Foster made 5 or 6 really good saves in the last 10 minutes. They were brilliant and they deserved it. But the 2 goals it was kamikaze stuff from Manchester United's point of view, and they are now in a league season in which they've lost to West Ham, Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, Newcastle United and Watford. It's safe to say that if this was anyone else of any sort of a different background as regards the club and its history than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he would not be in the job. It was an emotional appointment at the time, and it's now an emotional retention.
Is it though?
Are
you not like? Is the squad not so far away from?
I'm not arguing right now. I'm not arguing the point as to whether he should stay or whether he should be sacked.
Right.
I'm saying that if it wasn't him, he would be sacked by now. Because it's been a catastrophically bad season for them. They've won 6 of their 18 games.
It's 6 points against the bottom 7, and yet they've got 10 points against games in the top 4.
Yes, they've played Leicester, Liverpool, Chelsea, Tottenham, Manchester City, Arsenal, if you want to throw in the
big clubs,
traditional big 6.
Yeah,
and they haven't lost any of those games.
Signs of progress there, Dave.
The stats yesterday are mind-boggling. We'll get into them with Kenny.
Yeah,
but the one that
okay.
stood out the most for me is that they've, in the 17 games, the last 17 games in which they've enjoyed more of the ball than their opponents, they've won once. 1 in 17. Astonishing.
It's not great. We'll come back to that a little bit later on when we're talking with Kenny. Here is indeed what's coming up. So, show started at 7:30 for you this morning. It's 7:45 a.m. now. The sports pages are coming your way. Kenny Cunningham is going to join us around 8:05. We'll talk football with him. And then Christmas racing around about 8:35. Tom Ronan O'Gara is going to join us at 8:45. You can use this, use the hashtag OTBAM to tweet us this morning. And Tommy might send us out early. School might be getting out early this morning. Is that what happened, Tommy? I don't know. It is. Yeah, it is.
I heard rumours to that effect.
Oh, yeah. So we're finishing at 9. Can you believe it? Phoning it in today. What? I can't believe who made that decision. Let's get to the newspapers.
OTB AM.
Back page of the Star this morning. Sorry, I just got to bring this. I haven't noticed this before. Ireland's greatest newspaper, and it's got the little holly wreath beside it. I mean, Christmas time, a bit of sucker for a bit of holly beside it. If they say it's Ireland's greatest newspaper, it must be. So the back page here is a pool party on the beach. Alison wants Liverpool to create more history by landing the Premier League title after celebrating their first Club World Cup. They seem to be taking it seriously anyway. And stuffed, but Ole keeps faith after De Gea disaster. David De Gea getting a bit of an easy ride here?
I don't know.
What is
an easy ride from his manager, you mean? Perhaps.
Like,
but no manager is ever going to come out and really go after the player who's made the mistake.
Is De Gea all that?
Right now, he's not.
Has he been for a while?
Well, he had a very poor finish to last season. And
the one that they rewarded him with the biggest contract.
Well, it was felt at the time that the distraction that was his contract issue and the winding down of his contract and all of the speculation over his future was probably one of the causes of his drop in form. And that once they got the deal in place and that he committed his long-term future to the club, that he could get back to the player who was the best goalkeeper in the league and had won, 4 Player of the Season awards in a row at the club. But no player is responsible for more mistakes that have led to goals this season than he in the entire division. And yesterday was as bad a mistake as you would expect any goalkeeper to make at any level.
Yeah. So what, like, do you sell him now?
Well, his value is dropping.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get for him now what you might have got in the weeks after he signed his new contract. But I don't think you'd throw the baby out with the bathwater in this case. Like, David De Gea is still a brilliant goalkeeper, but those mistakes have to be cut out. You put that in with the mistake he made against Everton, albeit it was a foul and VAR should have ruled the goal out, but he was just not strong enough in that goal that led to the moment that led to the own goal off the knees of Victor Lindelof. And there was another couple of incidents in the game yesterday where Watford were clearly just lobbing that ball into the penalty area, knowing that he was weak. And
old school GA
he
style.
had eradicated that from his game to a large extent. It was a big issue for him when he originally joined Manchester United and was very young and he was starting to perform in the Premier League. He was slight and he was frail and maybe he wasn't mentally strong, but he definitely improved that aspect of his game as well as all the other brilliant qualities that he has as a goalkeeper. But that error yesterday, look, you or I would have saved it. It was a shocker, absolute shocker.
I probably wouldn't.
Well, you would have been able to stand there and keep your hands together. That's all that was required in that particular moment. I've got the front page of the Irish Times. Racism is most definitely interfering with the game on every level. You mentioned Miguel Delaney's piece that people should read this morning. Another very good piece on it from Barney Ronay. The abuse of Rudiger goes beyond a wretched day for Spurs. It goes to the very soul of football. And Solskjaer angry at United's lack of urgency. He accuses players of playing at testimonial pace in the first half yesterday. And if that is the case, why did that happen? You're the manager, it's happening on your watch.
Yeah, so there's always a bit of the difference between who's responsible. How responsible are players for not putting in the shift, and how responsible is the manager for not inspiring them to do that? Like, it's definitely the manager and the culture that sets the tone, but you need players who are self-starting. Like, why is Harry Maguire not a leader in that team? Why is Rashford and De Gea and all the rest of them who realise that this is their gig, not actually able to inspire the people around them to work harder, to set a tone?
I don't know. One of the players who has set the tone in recent weeks and has become a fixture in the starting 11 is Scott McTominay. His first half yesterday was the stuff of nightmares in terms of a ball distributing midfield player, and the quality of the first half yesterday from both teams, it's as bad as the Premier League can get. Neither side could string more than 2 passes together. Even the most simple of 10-yard passes were being given back to the opposition.
Yeah, okay, look, we'll get into that again with Kenny in a couple of minutes' time. The Irish Daily Mail, so I think they don't have the racism story on their back page. The worst yet, David's howler sees United hit a shocking low. David's. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer blasted Manchester United for playing with the intensity of a testimonial as their worst ever Premier League season, reached another nadir yesterday. How did your county do? Sportsmail's hurling rankings for the season, and then Carberry set to make a comeback in Limerick. This is a Rory Keane story. Joey Carberry's on track to make his long-awaited comeback in next Saturday's interprovincial clash between Munster and Leinster in Thomond Park. Carberry travelled to the World Cup in Japan with an ankle injury and returned in a worse state. So that's in the Daily Mail in England. Spurs race storm. Rudiger complains of monkey chants, and Ole will play like a testimonial. So
the front page of the Examiner's sports supplement today: gift wrapped, De Gea's howler helps Watford stun United. And there are a number of interesting reads in the Examiner this morning, but one of them is a piece with Paul Keane, by Paul Keane, with former Dublin footballer Shane Carthy, although he's 25 years old. He's described as a former Dublin footballer, but he has ambitions to turn that back into a current Dublin footballer. Darkness into Light, Dublin, Shane Carthy on battling depression. Really interesting piece on the road that he has travelled in dealing with mental illness and how much progress he's made. 90 different talks in 2019 Shane Carthy has given on mental health and battling depression. That is he's a busy man.
Pretty impressive. And did he talk about what the issues were, how he managed to climb out?
It's a common theme, Jerry. He eventually spoke to somebody about it, and he describes himself having been in a position where he couldn't even tell members of his family about what he was going through, and now he's standing up in front of 1,200 people and specifically laying out exactly what he was going through. So it's been quite a step up for him in that regard, and now he just wants to get back to showing that he's good enough to be part of Desi Farrell's plans with Dublin, who would have managed him at under 21 level.
The Racing Post, the front cover this morning: McCoy, don't doubt surname stamina for King George. So Tony McCoy has urged Harry Cobden not to repeat the mistake he once made as the greatest ever jumps jockey declared surname is Ladbrokes King George the 6th chase pick, but stressed the sport's top performer must be ridden as though his stamina is guaranteed. So it's basically a preview of Kempton on Stephen's Day.
Back at the Irish Independent, this is Britain in 2020. This is football in 2022. That's Miguel Delaney and Paul Hayward's piece. Investigation launched into alleged racist chants directed at Rudiger by Tottenham crowd during Chelsea victory. And there's a piece by Eamon Sweeney in the Indo today. Solskjaer simply too nice to be the Manchester United manager. Also a mention of that piece with Shane Carthy as well, that's in the Independent as well this morning.
I missed the whole Pogba. Gary Neville also said that he's lying about Pogba, that Solskjaer hasn't been completely honest.
I missed that as well. What was
it's the sense
referencing?
That he needs to get rid of him, that he actually wants to get rid of him.
So when he says the club have no intention of selling, that
actually
not being truthful.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose if you have any intention of selling, you tell everybody that you've no intention of selling.
Exactly, isn't that it?
But to accuse him of being dishonest in that regard, he's just playing the game.
I think Solskjaer's playing a clever game right now, or he desperately wants him to stay. If he came out and said, no, Pogba does not have a future here, then it would depreciate the price heavily. So I think he's saying Pogba has a future here, but I can't believe there isn't something going on behind the scenes, especially when you hear the agent's comments this week. That was what he said. Pogba came off the bench. What was that like?
He was good.
Was he?
Yeah. Himself and Mata came off the bench in quick succession and they changed the game. Not to the point where United actually scored, but that was more down to poor finishing and good goalkeeping from Ben Foster. But their ability to create definitely improved markedly after Pogba was brought in. He played in a couple of brilliant balls into the penalty area. Mata brought in far more guile. At one stage they had Mata, Pogba, Martial, Rashford and Mason Greenwood all on the pitch together. And suddenly Watford looked very vulnerable. And there was a feeling going into the last quarter of an hour, if they conceded once, they might implode. But they managed to keep them out.
Okay, so there's room for Pogba. in that team. Then the back page of The Guardian is Antonio Rudiger and race shame at Spurs. Referee halts game after Rudiger targeted from stands. Give you The Sun. We're sick of this. Racism hits Prem again. Rudiger accuses fan of monkey chant as stars unite to call out morons. You know, anyway. What a disaster, and it's obviously the picture of David De Gea. So.
Back at the Times London, Tottenham racism shame, game halted as Chelsea defender reports abuse, Sky disown Neville criticism of political leaders. And there's a mention on some of the back pages of the big story of the weekend, Ger, that non-Premier League related, non-racism related as well. That's obviously just dominating all of the headlines. But I'm sure you were all over the darts the weekend, Ger.
All over the darts, Dave, yeah.
Watching Fallon Shearer continue to make history at the Ali Pali.
Yeah, fair play to her. She won again.
She won again.
What was the story about the Irish lad who couldn't count?
Yeah, he miscounted in, was it the final leg? It was definitely in the final.
Needed a double two, aimed at double one.
Yeah.
Not a great look.
He thought he was on 4.
All those hours and hours and hours of hard work, and all you've got to do is a bit of maths, and you're like, can't do it.
Yeah, well, it's a misjudgment as opposed to a miscount. Like, nobody mistakes 4 for 2, but or vice versa. But it went. I'm not sure if it actually cost the match because I didn't see it, but I read about it, and it was a mistake that was making the headlines for all the wrong reasons.
They're the hardest working sports people in the world, aren't they? They're up there.
I don't, and I'm sure our darts-loving
listeners
and viewers will not appreciate your sarky tone.
They're up there with the boxers, the cyclists, you know, the rowers. They're the hardest working sports people.
They put as much time into their craft as any rower or boxer, yes.
Do they put as much time in as the boxers and rowers?
They may not have put as much thought into their nutrition, their diet, their time away from the practice board. But in terms of actually honing their craft, they would spend as much time at the Ocky as Paul O'Donovan would in the boat, I would suggest.
Well, I mean, he's obviously also in the gym. There's like a part of getting into the boat.
Well, I did make that different. I did make that
then
distinction.
It's not the same. Then it's not the same. Irish Daily Mirror this morning. Let's stop racism together. Chelsea skipper Azpilicueta reported racist abuse of Rudiger to the ref and calls on everyone to unite and defeat the scourge. And then they've also Flappy Christmas, which is probably the headline of the day. It's David De Gea flapping at the ball. Robertson, now English may take this cup seriously. Andy Robertson believes Liverpool's success in the Club World Cup will force English teams to take the competition more seriously. The game goes to extra time. Not exactly what Liverpool would have wanted.
No, obviously not. And there was a chance that their semi-final against Monterrey was going to go to extra time as well. I was speaking to Gavin yesterday on News Talk before Off the Ball went live, and he was asking me about the prestige and the significance of winning the competition, and it's something we can maybe get into with Kenny, but the fact that they were winning for the first time is a huge deal for them, and it just keeps the momentum going. It's another trophy.
You get a medal at the end of your career. Did you win the World Cup or win the World Cup? You're telling your kids I won the World Cup. They're like not going, oh, well, was it, the real one? Was it in Doha? Was everybody there? They're like, oh, you won the World Cup. Happy days. Like,
if it was my dad and he was telling me that, I probably would say, well, hang on, how many teams were in it?
Every team in the world, son. Every team in the world starts out at the start of the year with a chance of winning this.
Anyway, we can debate the prestige of the World Club Championship at another time. This is the Daily Telegraph, the last one I have. Racist storm. PFA calls for government inquire after Spurs launch investigation into alleged abuse of Chelsea's Rudiger. And Fab Fallon, Hollywood next for darts sensation. I haven't read the story inside, so I assume it's Tinseltown as opposed to the town in Northern Ireland that they're referring to.
Who knows?
But I'd have to read it to clarify.
It could be Hollywood County Down. Which is more likely, ultimately, in the long run? Is this story going to be...
Does one have 2 L's? Does Hollywood in LA have 2 L's? Hollywood in Northern Ireland only has 1? Am I wrong?
I think you're wrong. I think...
So it could be the North of Ireland then?
It could be, but...
But we're not going to bother opening the paper to find out.
So, what's the tab of the morning? Oh, sorry, it's the headline of the day. I meant to say tab of the morning, sorry. For
which one did you go for?
Flappy Christmas. The Man United fans aren't going to be happy with that. Well, there's most of the other headlines are about stuff that's a bit too serious. So, what's the last one here then? Got the Irish news for you? Yeah. Watford woe for Ole's United. We played like it was a testimonial, says Solskjaer. Caro Kane's been doing a good thing where he's been talking about the best 15 of each of the counties in Ulster in this millennium. It's been fairly controversial because, you know, the millennium is quite deep. The Tyrone team, for example, quite deep. Donegal team, quite deep. Like it's team of the decade is like fairly straightforward in most cases.
So team of the last 20 years for each county.
Yeah.
You're going to encounter a bit of controversy in that.
Well,
particularly the more successful counties.
Well, like that Tyrone team, like even which of those 3 All-Ireland winning teams was the best? Because they all changed just subtly enough.
Yeah, well, there was about 6 guys that would have won 3 medals. So there were huge differences between 03 and 08, for example. Like, is Peter Canavan in the team?
Yeah, of course. I mean, obviously. What? He was there for 2 of them.
Yeah, well, he was there for 2 of them, but the second one...
He has a seminal role, even though he's injured, on one leg.
It was one of the greatest substitutions in sports history, wasn't it?
It is, yeah. So he gets in straight for that. Times UK? Yeah. So the end of year rugby awards in the Times UK, sorry, which I don't have here. Oh, do you have it?
Did I have it? Yeah.
Yeah. Owen Slott has picked his rugby team of the decade. How many Irish players do you think? You know, the decade of Joe Schmidt. How many does the London Times rugby correspondent give the Paddies?
Well, I know because you had said it to me.
So you'd have like 4, wouldn't you? 4 of us, maybe?
Yeah. Just the one, Ger. Just the one. A certain Wexford tight head. Tyke Furlong makes it. Will I call out the team?
Yeah.
Israel Folau.
Right.
It's safe to say this is a team based purely on what happens on the pitch.
You can finish now. I've had enough. Honestly, I've had enough. Screw you. Right. The other thing that we wanted to talk about was Brian O'Connor's column in the back of the Irish Times, which I think you also have there, talking about Austin Gleeson not having any crack at Christmas this year because they're going to wire into the training.
Yeah, Austin saying that he's chosen not to enjoy Christmas, that he wants himself and Waterford to have a proper 10-month run into what they hope will be a vastly different championship campaign after 2 really poor years.
Does that mean you're not going on the piss properly? Is that what it is? It's not about like not enjoying yourself. It's like not tearing the arse out of it.
Yeah, I think like when it's quoted in the way it was, it sounds like a little bit of a soundbite. But any elite athlete, anybody taking their fitness very seriously and their conditioning very seriously, probably isn't going out on the lash and doing the 12 pubs in the build-up to Christmas Day. But is he not going to spend Christmas with his family? Will he not sit down and enjoy his Christmas dinner? Will he not maybe have a little bit of dessert, sit down and watch a movie, put the fire on? That sounds like a rather enjoyable Christmas to me. I don't know. There will be a lot of people who are not athletes of the renown of Austin Gleeson and other inter-county hurlers and footballers that will probably go for a run Christmas morning. Will probably be in the gym Christmas Eve. Will be back in the gym on St. Stephen's Day because that's just what they do.
That'd be you, right?
Not necessarily, no.
Maybe though.
There's an outside chance, a couple of those days, maybe.
If you get 40 minutes on Christmas morning, would you be tempted?
I might do it. There may be a run Christmas morning.
Right.
Like just a trot.
On your own?
Well, who else is going to go with me? But loads of people will do that. And yeah, but they'll have a few drinks maybe Christmas afternoon. But I don't know if I would say that Austin will enjoy his Christmas Day because he'll be there with family and friends, and that's what's most important.
Part of the issue, I think, with all of this is that there's still the culture of train. And we've been talking about this a good bit in the aftermath of Luke Keane's piece with us and then Philip Jordan's piece with us last week, where there's an inbuilt sense that unless you're training to the point of absolute sheer and utter exhaustion and your body is breaking, that you haven't done enough. And we know now that's just not right, that you don't need to kill yourself to get fully fit, that you can build up over a period of time and that short, sharp bursts are actually more beneficial for you for all sorts of reasons.
I've always looked at the number of players over the years that have not played in the league. Someone like Mike McCarthy, for example, the Kerry centre half-back, in their 2009 All-Ireland, am I right in saying?
Did he just come back? He came back after.
He retired, essentially.
Yeah.
Came back in April or May and was one of the best players in Kerry's All-Ireland Championship winning team. And that he's one of many, many examples over the years where players have either stepped away or have been injured or have changed their mind on whether they wanted to be part of the inter-county setup and come back, and they certainly did not look any the worse for it, to tell me that you do not need to be training from October to June to be able to have a proper crack at the championship. We know that the training session to match ratio is unbelievably skewed in Gaelic games, and it is what is leading to the sort of chronic hip and knee problems that guys in their 20s are having, that it will see in 20 years' time, 25 years' time, a huge number, disproportionate from the general population, of guys who would have played in this particular era having hip replacements, knee replacements in their 50s.
But they're having them in their 30s. Like there's a senior inter-county footballer who played at the very highest level, who was one of the best footballers in the country, who had a hip replacement last week in his 30s. And there are several of those. There shouldn't really be that. I mean, obviously there are going to be some who end up at the end of a career having an injury that causes it, or having been predisposed to an underlying condition, and but there's just too many of them.
Yeah, like I don't know the figures now, and I don't want to speculate, but I think it'll certainly become, these players are probably the guinea pigs, and we will have more information as the years go on. But I think something drastic needs to be done, where there needs to be a ban on. The inter-county season needs to be completely turned on its head, and I don't think players should be with their county for more than 5 or 6 months of the year, max. Nowadays, it's a 10-month gig.
The NFL season is great because it's so short. It happens, there's a 5-month burst and it's over. And it's actually a 4-month burst, really, because most of the teams are gone at that stage. And the last month.
Yeah, but they're training in March, aren't they?
Well, no. I mean, they all are. There's organised team activities of about 3 or 4 days, and then they go away, and then there's a week, and then they go away, and then there's another pre-season, and then it starts. But like most of the time, and when they are there, they're severely limited to like 2 hours on field in full pads, 2 hours on field, no pads. Like every single minute is prescribed about what you can and can't do. So then it comes down to the individual to actually look after themselves away from the game, which is, personal responsibility.
They are being paid millions of dollars.
Very good system,
well.
But the money is kind of an irrelevancy. Like in terms of everybody agreeing that we're going to do this amount and no more, because it actually lessens the possibility of us playing, because we're going to get injured training instead of actually.
Yeah, no, that's the point I'm trying to make. In that I think that every team should have a parameter in which they can train. And if you break those parameters, there's a serious punishment for it.
You get
so if there's any sly trips away, sightseeing trips, cultural enlightenment trips that some counties might be taking, if there are more sessions than are permitted, the GA comes down on those counties like a ton of bricks. And everybody then is playing off the same level, and also it probably helps cancel out some of the geographical issues that certain counties have to deal with. So Mayo, for example, Donegal, Kerry, the teams that have several players in their squad that have to travel from Dublin on a Tuesday night and get back for work Wednesday morning, they may not have to do that as often. Less time in the car, less time on the training pitch, not worrying about what counties like Dublin or Meath, for example, Kildare, are able to achieve in your absence from the training field, because they're actually living and training closer to their workplace. Right.
10 minutes past 8 this morning here on OTB AM, the Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball, live from 7:30 every morning. Best place to watch us is youtube.com/Off the Ball. You can subscribe there. The best place to listen is the Go Loud app. Just click the icon at the bottom of the app and select OTB Sports Radio. That's our 24-hour sports radio station. Football next this morning. We're back after these.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Off the ball. Oh wow, this is aggressive.
I've watched Off the Ball. I'm Scottish. I've seen on YouTube.
I met a South African last night, and he was there. He knew that Dublin won 5 in a row because he watched us Off the Ball. He really, and he lives in Thailand.
I've watched Off the Ball on YouTube. They're good boys.
We love you, and everywhere we follow. We absolutely love it.
Off the Ball. This is OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station. OTB AM.
Now, it's everybody's favourite Christmas elf, Kenny Cunningham. Kenny, good morning to you.
Morning, lads.
How are you?
It's Christmas, is it?
It is, yeah, come on.
Right.
I thought you would have been king of Christmas.
Oh, lads, far from it, I'm afraid. Far from it.
You're really?
Nearer the Scrooge end of the spectrum,
Kenny.
I would think.
What?
Yeah, afraid so, lads, yeah. I wouldn't be at my best over the Christmas and New Year, in all honesty.
Ah, I thought the food in particular would have been something you would have, pigs and blankets.
I enjoyed my grub Christmas Day, no doubt about that, but that's only 10 minutes, lads. It's the rest of it, that's the problem.
Is this from your days as a footballer when actually footballers couldn't properly enjoy Christmas?
I think it is, in all honesty, Jay, you're right, yeah, it's a funny old time. I love me football around the Christmas, New Year, and it is a bit of a drop-off. There is a little bit of that to it. When you do take a step away from the game, it's a funny old time. I think I remember a couple of lads alluding to it as well, saying it's probably the most difficult time of the year, funny enough. The time you think you'll enjoy more and, get on the lash and eat what you want and, no rules, etc., etc., but yeah, it's probably the one time of the year certainly when you initially step away from the game, when it kind of hits home that, I'm missing this a bit, definitely.
Right, okay. That's really interesting, Kenny. I didn't realise this.
Yeah, sorry, lads, just burst your balloon there.
No, it stands to reason, though. It's not like there's a rule out there that everyone has to enjoy Christmas. It's a rough time of year for a lot of people for so many different reasons, but I'd never actually heard it been put in those terms, that even at this remove, Kenny, so many years after your retirement, you still remember those days where the whole place was just a buzz with this cramped fixture list and all the enjoyment and the pressure and everything that went with it. Oh, no, it was, from a footballing perspective, it was by far the best time of the year. Games coming thick and fast. Just the absolute, just the buzz of the games, even the travelling, don't get me wrong, travelling New Year's Eve or, bit of time away from the household and all those things I understand, but ultimately, the games coming thick and fast, everyone matters, the opportunity to get on a bit of a run over the Christmas period, get yourself away from relegation, get yourself a bit closer to the top of the league, whatever it was. It was a little bit manic, around that time as well. A bit of madness, really. But a lot of people screamed, there are too many games, a disgrace. But within the confines of the dressing room, amongst the players, they absolutely loved it.
Yeah, one of my favourite things about Stephen's Day was always that there was crazy results, like all the way back to Luton and their plastic pitch and QPR and their plastic pitch. Frequently, Liverpool or somebody who were supposed to be really good would get turned over, and they wouldn't get turned over 1-0, they get hammered out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's amazing that. Yeah, those kind of standalone results over the course of the season. I take your point, just coincidentally. Maybe that's a bit of a mindset, wherever it was, I'm not too sure, but you're right, those kind of freakish results certainly did happen. But yeah, definitely, without a doubt, I always felt that kind of feeling around the place amongst the players that, it was a time of the year everybody really focused on and looked forward to it.
Let's talk about the football over the weekend. We might talk about some of the other stuff if we have time at the end. Dave made the point a little bit earlier on, Kenny, that if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was not a club legend at Manchester United, that the results he's had this season would have seen him sacked by now. Is that a straightforward thing, that that's the only thing that's keeping him in the job, or are there enough signs about what they're trying to do? And it is a bit of a revolution, really, in terms of getting the side to have an identity and a style of play and something. Is there enough beyond the fact that he's a club legend to warrant him staying?
I'd agree with David. I think it's helping him, but I certainly don't think it's the only reason. I think the fact they made this decision at the end of the season and they've backed their manager publicly on a number of occasions now, Ed Woodward in particular, means they're almost obligated at least to stick with Solskjaer or whoever the manager was till the end of the season. It's almost like public humiliation for Woodward if he sacks him now. So I think he'll stick with him till the end of the season, not just because it's Solskjaer, but I think his reputation, his association with the club certainly is a factor and strengthens his position to an extent, but only to an extent, lads. Does that mean he's going to stick with him for the next 2 or 3 years for the remainder of his contract? No. I think he'll stick with him to the end of the season, like what they should have done last season, rather than giving it to Solskjaer a couple of months before the end of the season. So they should have sat on their hands till the end of the season and then made a more objective opinion. I don't think they'll make that mistake again this season by second Solskjaer now. I think they'll stick with him till the end of the season and then make a judgment call then.
They would have made similar public pronouncements around Moyes, Van Gaal and Mourinho as well, though, Kenny, at certain times in the weeks or months before they were sacked. I'm not saying that he should be sacked, because I'm not sure overall what my feelings are on that, but I do firmly believe that if he wasn't Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, that they would have let him go by now. The results are that bad. 6 wins from 18 is appalling, and no clean sheet in 13 games. You lose to Bournemouth, Palace, West Ham, Newcastle, Watford over the span of an 18-game run, on the back of the absolutely dreadful finish they had to last season. Like it's a 9-month body of work which stinks, and he is being allowed to continue in the job because. And Jerry, you make the point. There are other signs of, green shoots of positivity.
So specifically about those stats you had about the against when they don't have the ball, they're actually a better team. And I'm trying to make bear with me here. It's not an easy case to make in the face of the evidence that we're seeing in front of us, right? But they're trying to transition to a style where they're going to be competitive in the Champions League. They just need to add a central midfielder who's going to be able to help them against the teams where they're going to dominate and maybe collectively improve their goal scoring against those teams who are weaker.
Well, yeah, I disagree with you there. I think this perception out there that you need to be a team which dominates possession of the football and have majority of possession of the football to actually dominate a game and be successful is wrong.
Sorry.
That may be preferred way of playing football.
Hang on.
Jerry's saying the opposite.
For once, I'm kind of agreeing with you here. They're getting better results when they have less of the ball, and I'm saying that actually they're going to be a really good counter-attacking team in Europe, and their record against the better teams would bear out the fact that they would survive and they will prosper. But when they do have more of the ball against inferior teams like they had against Watford, they don't know what to do with it at the moment.
Yeah, no, I think it's a fair point. We've probably had this discussion before, Jay, in terms of that creative edge. That generally comes from really the central area of the pitch, Jay. I think they have the players now, certainly with Harry Maguire at centre-half, who can receive the ball off the keeper and walk the ball into those central area of the pitch. He can drive in there himself, Maguire. He's certainly good enough to break that initial line and get it into those central areas. But yeah, McTominay or Fred, it's obvious to say they haven't got players who can play on the half-turn, who can then walk the ball further up the pitch efficiently, and that kind of array of passing. That's pretty obvious, but everybody can see that's crying out. Have a look at the impact Pogba made in the game yesterday coming on, how he was able to transform that team from a creative point of view in terms of breaking the lines with his pass and picking out those big long diags for those runners in behind. That's the difference that Paul Pogba makes as somebody of his ilk in that central midfield area. So you're right. In terms of that type of football, it's not going to change unless Pogba comes back into the team and he's focused and is determined to commit his future, short and medium term, to Manchester United and produce the type of top quality performance we know he can. And if that's not the case and he still sees his future away from the club, get him out the door and get at least one, if not two, of those more creative type of midfield players that you're talking about. And then Manchester United will have that kind of variation in central midfield which you're talking about. But does it mean they can't be successful without that? No, I don't think it does, because Atletico Madrid have been successful for a huge period of time in Spain and in Europe, playing that type of kind of counter-attacking football without that necessarily creative type of central midfield player. If you look at Liverpool actually over the weekend, I was covering the game against Flamengo, had the majority of possession of the football, the Brazilian side, against Liverpool. But Liverpool won that game, and Liverpool are the type of team who don't create possession of the football either. At times, Liverpool are capable of playing on the counter-attack very successfully, and they're probably the best team in the world. Well, officially they are the best team in the world at the moment. So that's the bone of contention, I suppose, in the conversation, which will be continuing to be around Solskjaer and Manchester United, certainly between now and the end of the season.
But the key to that Diego Simeone Atletico team, Kenny, was that they would have won a lot of those games 1-0, and it was their defence that they were able to rely on. They had Hernandez, Godin, Juan Fran, Jimenez, Felipe Luis, and they knew that if they got one, it was almost always going to be enough for them to win those games against these smaller teams or weaker teams where they wouldn't create as many chances. And going forward yesterday, United weren't the worst. They had that Jesse Lingard chance which really should have been taken. In the last 10 minutes they created 5 or 6 really good opportunities. but they cannot stop conceding goals. And so against the sides that are going to shut up shop and put 11 men behind the ball, United, to win the game, have to score 2 or 3, which is really difficult to do against these sides. And 13 games without a clean sheet, Kenny, in the Premier League. It's their worst record in nearly 50 years in league football. Like, what are you seeing as a centre half as the main causes behind what is now a farcical run of form defensively?
Yeah, that's a fair point that you make, but I'd argue it's not just about the defensive unit, that the back four, which is stretched across the pitch in terms, and your goalkeeper even in terms of your ability to keep clean sheets. Dave, it's the ability to hold team. It's the collective setup, defensive setup, the whole team from front to back. When you start chasing the ball, or putting that press on, whether it's a high press, medium, low, whatever it is, it starts from the front in terms of the kind of qualities that you have higher up the pitch in terms of pressing the ball, and what happens behind that, and eventually your defensive line. So it's about the whole collective unit for me in terms of how efficient they are. In terms of that, if you want to just look at that defensive line, I look at Wan-Bissaka. I think excellent player, particularly going forward, but still relatively young and experienced, still learning the game. We saw that as challenge yesterday. It was kind of a wild challenge, inexperienced challenge. I look at the centre-half pairing. I think it's solid. Do I think it's absolutely world-class? No. Is Harry Maguire in improving what they had? Yes. Am I a huge fan of Maguire? No. Lack of mobility, lack of athleticism, kind of quickness over the ground for me at times kind of cost them. So that's a small issue there as well. So the small little things there, contributory factors in terms of, Dave, in terms of what you're saying. But you're absolutely right. The most successful, Atletico Madrid, did build their success on a sound defensive foot as well, and the ability to keep clean sheets and look to counter-attack people, teams efficiently. I don't think that's going to be Manchester United going forward. I think there's going to be a call for Manchester United to play a different way, that kind of creativity in midfield, more of a possession-based team. I think that'll grow that kind of calling, that kind of demand from Manchester United supporters generally. I think that's how Solskjaer wants to play, but that's going to take a little bit of time. And in terms of players coming into the football club are going to be absolutely key in terms of recruitment. Question is also going to be given the responsibility to bring those players in. I'm still not convinced, to be honest with you, but I think that decision will be made next summer at the earliest.
If you were in charge, would you just give the job to Pochettino? Would you try and get him, or would you ring Simeone and see what it takes to get him? Like, if you had carte blanche to do what you want, Kenny, what would you do?
No, I think Pochettino for me is a strong option. He really is. And if I was Ed Woodward at the moment, I wouldn't be personally picking up the phone to Pochettino or his representatives, but I'd be certainly speaking to people intermediaries who could speak to him, and I'd be sounding them out, and I'd be asking what his intentions are, and I'd be saying, would he be prepared to sit? Is he prepared to sit till the end of the season if this job was to become available, and just find out what his thoughts are? Because for me, he's an outstanding manager, and actually would be a very good fit at Manchester United. But it's a delicate one. Would he wait till the end of the season? He's come out publicly and said he wants to get back into football, and he wants to get back in quickly. Whether Manchester United give him the guarantee that job would be there at the end of the season. But if they feel as if he is the fit, he's ready in terms of experience, the relative success he's had at Spurs in terms of reshaping that squad. Maybe they could actually give him that guarantee now that job's his at the end of the season, and save themselves a little bit of face in the meantime by keeping Solskjaer in the job. And that's not very fair on Solskjaer, but they would save face in the meantime. They'd probably end up getting a man who they probably do covet in terms of the number one for that job.
It's an interesting one, and I see the point you're making, Kenny, and it would certainly go down well with the supporters if Solskjaer was allowed to stay until the end of the season. But if you find yourself in a position where you're pushed to make this hypothetical call to Pochettino, why wait? Their season is still there for them. They're within touching distance of the top four. They've got a semi-final of the League Cup coming, so they're a tie against Manchester City, who they've already beaten this season away from getting to Wembley. They're in the last 32 of the Europa League. There's an FA Cup run potentially still to come. It's not like this season is a write-off by any stretch. Yeah.
No, I agree with you. That's the hardest decision to make, and that would actually take, the old big kahuna that people speak about on Ed Woodward's behalf. He'd have to kind of fall on his own sword to a certain extent. That's what I'm talking about in terms of how public supportive he's been of the manager. But if his gut feeling tells him, not his gut feeling, but if he thinks Pochettino's me man, he's the one I desperately want, he's the one we wanted last summer, but we just really couldn't get him out at Tottenham. He's available now, and his intermediaries tell him, look, he's not going to be available in the summer. He's not prepared to wait. He will take this job now. If you offer it to him in the next month, then that's the big decision that Woodward has to make. And I think you're right, Jay. If that's the case, and those are the circumstances which is facing Woodward, yeah, he has to bite the bullet. And it's tough. People may think that's on Solskjaer. Medium to long term, it's probably the right thing for Manchester United Football Club. It's a tough call to make, but in effect, it probably is the right call at this moment, if that's the circumstances as they are.
It's an interesting one as well, that when Pochettino was fired, there were a number of options that seemed to be on the table. Real Madrid were not going well. Bayern Munich were not going well. Arsenal were not going well.
All gone.
All of these jobs are now been taken off the table. Bayern Munich have made an appointment till the end of the season now. That's not to say Pochettino couldn't go to Munich in the close season. Real Madrid are back playing good football, winning league games. They're toe-to-toe with Barcelona. Arsenal have obviously appointed Mikel Arteta. So Tuchel seems to be a bit more settled at PSG. There are definitely options that were on the table a month ago that are now no longer there. And I just wonder if that has just closed the alternatives in Pochettino's eyes, and Manchester United are now looming large on his horizon. Yeah, possibly. I'm a little bit surprised Pochettino came out publicly and said he was desperate to get back in. I would have thought he would have been best served. The advice I would have been given him was really just to sit till the end of the season. I know he's a young man and he's obviously wants to get back involved. He loves the game, etc. And he wants that buzz again of being a manager at a top club. But for me, if I was advising Pochettino, probably for the reasons that we're talking about here, I'd be saying, look, just sit till the end of the season. Put it out there, look, I'm going to sit till the end of the season, going to reevaluate, reflect the whole shebang, and then I'm going to look to get myself involved next season at the club, a whole pre-season to go and build a team, to recruit, and to go again at the start of the next season. Personally, that's the advice I'd be giving Pochettino, because I don't think a huge amount's going to change at Manchester United between now and then. And I think it's an easier decision then for Woodward and the United board to offer him the job at the end of the season than it is now. I know you're saying, Jen, a bit of a struggle at the moment, but it's still a tough call for Woodward to take Solskjaer out of that job now and hand it to any other manager, let alone Pochettino. I think that's an easier decision for Woodward to make. Wouldn't receive more criticism, probably less criticism would come his way if he left that till the end of the season. I think Pochettino could help him out actually indirectly by actually saying, look, I'm going to take a step back, I'm going to sit till the end of the season, and then I'm going to go hopefully at a top club.
Last question on this for now. Gary Neville saying it looks like he thinks Pogba doesn't really want to be there. He is their best player, but he doesn't want to be there. If that's the case, that Manchester United should get rid of him. If you're Manchester United, if you're the manager, do you believe that you can have a better team without Pogba, or do you try and make Pogba work for you for the last 5-6 months in the hope that, you know, you can go on a run and win the Europa League, save your job, win the League Cup, and like have a trophy-winning season, and, you know, change the narrative around Solskjaer?
Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. Yeah, absolutely, yeah, you're right. There is still a possibility there. Things could turn around for Pogba and Solskjaer. Solskjaer is heavily dependent on Pogba now between now and the end of the season. So you saw he spoke about him after the game yesterday. He could transform Manchester United season. Just how we transformed Manchester United and Solskjaer came into the football club last year. I mean, Pogba's stats in terms of goals and assists were off the radar for the first couple of months when Solskjaer came in. And he's that good a player, he really is. But he's no good to Manchester United going forward if he's not totally committed to the football club. He doesn't want to be there. It's just as simple as that. If he doesn't want to be there, he's got to get him out. It's as simple as possible. But if he can get a trick or two out between now and the end of the season, or he maybe pop will decide, well, listen, I need to generate myself a move in the summer. I need to start reminding clubs around Europe how good I actually am.
Or if they promise him a move,
get a out between now and the end of the season. But ultimately, if he's not committed to the football club, and I think it's a shame because I'm a huge, absolute huge Pogba fan. He could actually drive this Manchester United team and club forward over the next 2 to 3 years. He really could. He's that good. But unfortunately, if he's not committed to the cause, you've got to show him the door.
But they could promise him a move. They can reach an arrangement themselves, can't they? You know, we will let you go in the summer, similar to what they did with Cristiano Ronaldo at the end of the 2008 season when they won the Champions League. We will let you go next summer, but between now and this summer, we need you to help us qualify for the Champions League or win the Europa League. And in turn, as you've mentioned there, you'll enhance your own value. We'll get a bigger transfer fee. and you will have better options in terms of the clubs that might be interested in you.
Yeah, he might have that conversation with us, Solskjaer. It's a pretty depressing scenario for a Manchester United supporter to hear that. You know what I mean? You know, put your head down, put in some decent performances, and we let you go. I mean, you know what I mean? That is pretty depressing, but that's the reality of the situation, Jer. That may well be the case. I don't think Solskjaer will have that conversation when he'll still feel as if, I want to keep this fella here, because he knows this fella could keep him in a job at the end of the season. He really is that good, Pogba. So that's very interesting to see how that develops. But it suggests, looking at Pogba's body language, even prior to that, picking up that injury, how things have gone since, just get that sense really as if the player is looking to get away, and that kind of dynamic isn't going to change.
Kenny, good stuff. Enjoy the pigs and blankets. Thanks a million.
Nice one, chaps.
Happy Christmas. Good luck. It's Kenny Cunningham there, joining us to talk to us about the situation at Man United. One more Man United bit for you. It's Gary Breen chatting with David Vickers Road yesterday afternoon. Have a look.
They struggle. They haven't got the creativity that you normally associate with Manchester United. We talked about Lingard playing in the 10 area for Manchester United. 27 games now, that is. No goal, no assist. That's staggering, really, for a player who is playing in England's semi-final in the World Cup as well. So this is a problem you had. Mata comes on, gives him a little bit of that creativity. We know that his future is not here, or he's certainly not the future of Manchester United. But it's a huge concern, and I think so often now we're hearing so much spin coming out of Manchester United about this culture, the DNA being back. But Manchester United are judged on winning games in the Premier League, and they are just not winning enough to do that.
Finally, on Manchester United, after the draws with Sheffield United and Aston Villa, there was a huge amount of pressure on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. That was added to by the sudden availability of Mauricio Pochettino. It was papered over by the wins over Man City and Tottenham. Where are they now? Because they've dropped points now against Watford and Everton at home. Suddenly, they do not look like a side that are good enough to reach the top four. Any other top side would have sacked their manager by now, wouldn't they?
Well, they would have done, but this manager has a kudos attached to his playing career. He's an iconic figure there, and they've backed him so much in terms of giving him the job initially, and a lot of people will say in terms of the job that he'd done, reconnecting the club with the supporters after Mourinho was a magnificent job. So I always felt that it had to play out that he would get his opportunity, because if he didn't and someone else came in, the fans would always be calling for him if there was ever a bump in the road. I think it's played its way out now. I genuinely think that Solskjaer's not at the stage of his management career that he should be in charge of a club like Manchester United. I think it's too big a job. And I think they're going to have questions will be asked now, because they are talking about backing him. We'll see now in the transfer window what they'll do, because as you quite rightly said, you feel they're only 2 free signings away from being back up there. Potentially they are, but what will the quality of them signings be? Will it be young players that they want to develop again, or will it be the finished article? It remains to be seen. But you're just looking at the stats now, and you know, this is Manchester United, 8th in the Premier League going into Christmas. That's the lowest.
6 wins in 18.
That's the lowest position they've been since 1989. I mean, you can keep saying about he's Manchester United through and through, and you can keep telling me about the culture, the DNA of the club, and he understands everything. But in that table where the points are gathered, there's no points for culture, there's no points for DNA. It's all about winning, and that's Manchester United's philosophy.
All right, it's Gary Breen talking with Dave yesterday at Vicarage Road, nearly getting run over by the Moors. Dave says on Stephen's Day, Spurs against Brighton at 12:30. Dave and Brian Kerr. Bournemouth against Arsenal at 3 o'clock on Stephen's Day. On the 29th of December, it's Arsenal against Chelsea. Dave McIntyre and Gary Breen. And it's Liverpool against Wolves. Stephen Doyle and Brian Kerr. Double dub. That's at 4:30 on the 29th of December. 2 of our best sports stars have come together for a brand new show on Off the Ball in 2020. It's called Keane and McGean Unleashed. Ellen Keane and Kieran McGean will be discussing their own careers and talking to Sonia O'Sullivan and Kelly Harrington in the first episode, which premieres as part of our Nullig Naman special on Sunday, January the 5th, a day of nothing but female voices here on Off the Ball. Here's a little taster of Keane and McGean Unleashed.
Have you ever nearly drowned? I actually have. So I remember, I think I was on holidays when I was maybe 3 or 4. I was quite young, in Spain, I think. My parents may correct me on this, but I do remember having like an incident in the water, panicking, my dad rushing out trying to find me. Yeah, bad experience. But surprisingly enough, that has never affected me in the water since. Yeah, and then one time I used to spend a lot of my summers in Kilkee in Clare, and I used to bodyboard all the time. And one time I got in the sea when the current was too strong, and I literally got like drifted out. The lifeguard had to come and get me, and my dad tried to come get me too, but in the process of him trying to come get me, he got stranded out there too. So I got in, but he didn't, and the lifeguard had to end up saving him. So yeah, I have had a few incidences in the water, but just my absolute love for it brings you back. Yeah, it brings me back and keeps me in the water and keeps
There
me
was me being like, oh, any young kids that have had a hard experience, like, don't let that dishearten you. Get back in the water and try to get back on the horse, but maybe don't follow your suit in going into an safe environment off that current.
No, always look at the flags. Always, if in doubt, ask a lifeguard.
Ellen Key and Kieran McGean there. That's going to be great. Off the Ball's Nullig Le Mans special is coming your way on Sunday, January the 5th. Well, thanks to Lidl, who are supporting women's sports and the 20x20 moments. Tom Malone is here. Tom, how are you?
How's it going? Good.
What's going on? You're, this is your time of year, right?
This is my time, yeah. No, well, not until 10:30. The decks for Christmas come out at 10:30, so we'll kind of find out then what horses are going where, particularly Stephen's Day. There's two big races there. There's a 2 mile novice in Leopardstown, and there's a 2 mile 5 or 2.5 mile novice chase in Limerick. So that's their big grade one. So basically, Sam Crow, Fakir Duderee, Faugheen and Lorena are going to be divided across those races alongside the likes of Notebook as well. Some pretty decent novices.
Was the race in Limerick always that big, or has it got bigger in recent years?
That's been promoted to grade 1 status in only the last couple of years.
Right.
So it's something that's, and then elsewhere you got like 3 grade 1s at Kempton as well, which is like the King George Christmas Hurdle and the what's now the Cotto Star Chase.
Right. And at Kempton,
only really one Irish runner of note. That's Footpad, who'll run in the King George. Brilliant King George. Just the 7 runners, which is not great for punters' point of view because you want to play each way. You only get paid 2 places. But look, Cyrename, Lost in Translation, last year's winner, all line up there. And like Footpad looks good as well. Could be a similar kind of run, similar kind of profile horse to Vautour, who was just touched off a few years ago by Q Card in the closing stages. Just watching that race this morning as well. I'm still, every time I watch it, I still think he wins. And obviously, the race will always be Cotto Star's race, but yeah.
Right, very good. What are you looking forward to most over Christmas then in terms of the racing? In terms of the racing,
it is actually Stephen's Day. It will be Stephen's Day. The King George looks like it's going to be the best in several years. Puppy Power is going to ride a horse called Lost in Translation. He has a chance to do what's called the Triple Crown. The only horse to previously do it was Cotto Star, which is when the Betfair Chase, then the King George, and then go to the Gold Cup. And he looks set up to do that.
There's a million bonus for that if you do
Yeah,
that.
$1 million bonus for that. The negative for this is that he's probably not the right type of horse to win a King George. He doesn't look like he has the natural pace. He's more proper, old-fashioned stayer, but that'll be a really nice one.
Sports news?
Yeah, Tottenham say they're conducting a thorough investigation into the alleged racist behaviour from their supporters during the Premier League clash with Chelsea. Chelsea's 2-0 league win away to Tottenham, yes, it was temporarily stopped after Antonio Rudiger reported he'd been the target of racism. And Rudiger's manager, Frank Lampard, says he has his full support.
He heard some racist chanting. Azpilicueta was around as well. They're speaking to the authorities. Protocol was used. And obviously I would support Tony on that. And I would support anybody, and whether it was our player, another player, at any stadium. So that's how we are at Chelsea.
While former England defender Gary Neville feels players should be empowered to walk off the pitch in protest at racist abuse, Neville said after the game on Sky Sports, it's only strong action from the authorities that can make it stop.
We have a racism problem in the Premier League in England, and the Premier League have got to stand up. They hide behind the FA, the Premier League, on this issue. They hide behind the FA, in my opinion. They push the disciplinary issues and other issues over to the FA.
In the actual game itself, Williams scored twice in a man-of-the-match performance to keep the side in 4th place, while Spurs finished with 10 men after Heung-min Song was red-carded in the second half. Tottenham now sits 7th. Watford, meanwhile, gave their hopes of survival a boost with a 2-0 win over Manchester United. David De Gea handling error led to Ismaila Sarr's 50th minute effort finding the net before a Troy Deeney penalty doubled the Watford's advantage. Paul Pogba, well, he made his long-awaited return from injury as well in the second half as a sub, while Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's side are now in 8th place, 7 points adrift of 4th. Watford, meanwhile, remain bottom. Everton, they're going to submit some planning permission today for a new stadium. They're looking to move from Goodison Park to a 52,000-seater stadium at Bramley-Moore Dock. It's estimated it will contribute significantly to Liverpool's local economy. While Sheffield Wednesday are up to 3rd in the Championship after their 1-0 win over Bristol City yesterday, and the last of our live Night Football until Thursday. We'll be at Ewood Park this evening at 7:45. Wigan, who dropped into the second half of the table over the weekend, make the trip to Blackburn this evening. And in the darts, title holder Michael van Gerwen last night went through in straight sets at the PDC World Championship. He beat Ricky Evans in 4-0 in that one. With James Wade was knocked out. He lost out by 4-2 to your favourite nickname, Steve Beaton?
The Adonis.
Bronze Adonis. 56 years of age. You imagine he's big in Lanzarote.
It's the first time in a long time he's made it past Christmas Day, actually.
I think he's if he gets through again next year, he'll hold the record for the most appearances as well.
Yeah, 23 years since he was world champion.
He's tied with Phil Taylor at the moment.
Right, come on, we're finished.
What? No way.
We're done. It's over.
Adrian Lewis and he plays Darren Webbs this afternoon. Gary Anderson, former world champion, also in action against Ryan Searle later.
Tom, good stuff. Thanks for that. Ronan O'Gara joins us next here on OTB AM. First, though, we're going to bring you back to our last roadshow of 2019 when Connacht head coach Andy Friend joined us at our recent Heineken roadshow at the Galmont Hotel in Galway and talked about what he calls the Interpro phenomenon. Take a look.
I tell you, the biggest thing I sensed, Brian, was I called it the Interpro phenomenon, which was, if this week is Munster, Ulster, Leinster, we're up for that. And I'm like, why does that change? Like, you're still pulling on the same jersey. But it was a real big thing. And you could, if we'd lost a game, we lost a few games last year, and you'd say, how was your preparation? Yeah, all right. Was it the best? Well, it wasn't as good as if it was Leinster. And that's just so foreign in my brain. It's like, how's that any different? If we're meant to beat a team by 30 points, we beat them by 30 points. If we're meant to battle with a Leinster, well, let's battle with a Leinster, but let's go onto that footy field and say, we're going to win this game. And I think it's funny because the media always say to me before any big game, do you think you can win? Yeah, bloody oath I do. And they go, really? I said, I do. I'm not telling you that because I don't think. I honestly believe we'll win every game of football. And I honestly believe that. Maybe that's my warped sense of competitiveness, but until that last whistle, we're still battling there. I still think we're going to win it. And we were with John Kingston, and our first year that Will and I worked together, Quins had just been relegated. We were in the Champions Cup. I remember we were at Oral or one of those plays early on, and there was a game, and we were winning by 8 points. And JK said to me, we're going to lose this. And I'm like, we're not going to lose this. We can't lose this. There's no, we're going to smash them. We're going to put on another 4 tries, about 8 minutes to go. But sure as eggs, they got another score, and then they got another score. And I think we did lose that game. I'm thinking that's that whole, that compound bias or that bias where if you start to think something enough, it's going to happen for you.
Yeah.
So to me, that belief is everything. And I think we're getting much better as a team with that now, that pull on that jersey. Doesn't matter who we're playing, we're going to win it.
Yeah, Andy Friend, very impressive character. Anytime you get the opportunity to meet him, you should check out the rest of that roadshow. It's available on youtube.com/Off the Ball. Now, let's go to France and join Ronan O'Gara. Ronan, happy Christmas to you.
Many happy returns, sure.
Joyeux Noël. What are the French traditions?
It's not like Ireland anyway. We were in Glasgow for the game, was it last week, and the French were a bit shocked by a lot of the Glaswegians falling over around lunchtime and enjoying themselves. It's very, very different in France. It's, I'm gutted not to get home. I'd love to get home, but just coming back, I was training Stephen's Day at 3 o'clock, and there's a strike in France. So all the transport is kind of cancelled, so it's too risky. When your title changes, if you're an assistant coach, you can kind of ring the boss and go, I'm struggling here to be on time, but it doesn't give a good message if you're the one that's late.
Yeah, no. And do your players get time off? Obviously, they don't if you're training on Stephen's Day. There's no...
No, they do. It was good. That's why we have it at 3 o'clock, so people that have family spread throughout France. We played Bordeaux last night, and after that you could disperse straight away. So people drove to Paris or they drove to the south of France, and we don't have to be. We're not on till 3 o'clock on the 26th. So it'll give an opportunity to people that they won't have to travel on Christmas night either. They can get up early and go on the 26th.
Has this changed much from when you were a player, the Interpros? Was there always a game on the 26th for you guys, and did it always matter, and would you always have been forced to play at that stage?
But sure, that's you'd love to play, Ger. It's weird, people, I suppose, that aren't involved in professional sport. For the 26th, it's any day. There was years I remember going kicking on Christmas Day because you just bought into that, essentially Johnny Wilkinson work ethic. And it doesn't make you any better by going kicking on Christmas Day, but it's amazing the power of the mind and how that feels. If you go Christmas Day, it feels like, geez, I banked 10 sessions now because I went on Christmas Day, and that makes me so much better than anyone else. And what dedication to the cause. But actually, if you get your timetable right, you can actually take Christmas Day off. No, I think from going back to my time, sure, fellas were dying to play. It wasn't necessarily Stephen's Day. It was either the 27th, 28th, depending on, I suppose, what Saturday or Friday night fell.
That's funny you're talking about that, working on Christmas Day, because Austin Gleeson recently, the Waterford hurler, talked about how he wasn't going to enjoy Christmas this year the way he would have traditionally. He was going to get in and make sure that he was full sessions the whole way through the Christmas period, so that he'd be ready for next year. It wasn't going to be like, I'll be grand and I'll make it up in January. And you know, a lot of people are critical of that, like, look, you just don't have your mindset right. You should be able to enjoy yourself over Christmas, and then come January, you know, manage yourself properly.
Yeah, it's such a great topic. I think our point of discussion, Ger, because for me, the drive in the GA players is phenomenal, and they're just so, you know what I mean, professional might be an awkward word to use among the GA, but like in terms of their drive, and as you say, it's easy for us to judge, but you can't dictate a player's mindset. It's his inner feelings that decide what he wants to do, and if that's what makes him tick, away he goes. He's only answerable to himself, and I think that's the fascinating thing about sport. It's you against you. It's not you against what other people think. I think the greatest battle is you against you, because it kind of ties in nicely with the free taker in GA or the free taker in rugby, and the fact that it's you against you. And it essentially comes down to how can you manage pressure. For example, pressure in rugby for a prop is very different to pressure for a 10, pressure for a line-out thrower, pressure for a back three player, because when it's your time to nail your moment, you've got to get that right. But it looks very different for a lot of people in rugby as opposed to maybe in GA. It's kind of similar to the fact that a lot of them are looking to hit it or kick it over the bar, while in rugby it could be that actually the tight head getting up a little angle on the scrum that enables your 8-9 play to work down the short side, if you can follow my thought pattern.
Yeah, no, totally. It's different for all of them. But from your perspective, the Christmas Day sessions actually worked, it seems like.
For a while, Ger, but it was like, what does work look like, or what does that mean? You know, I think, you know, is it the fact that you go kicking on Christmas Day, does that add to your percentages from a kicking point of view? I don't think so. But I think it just rules out another potential route for an excuse in your own head. And that's, I suppose, the fascinating thing with it. When you're the kicker, you just kind of try to eliminate, and how can I sleep well at night? Well, if I do my work and I prepare to the best I can, then hopefully I'll perform at the weekend.
But you wake up Christmas morning, Ronan, and think, Wilkinson is out today. He's going to be at Kingston Park, or whatever the case might have been when he was playing for England. And if he's out there, I need to be out there.
Sorry, I never even said hello, Dave, and happy Christmas.
Good morning,
sir.
How are you?
You are spot on. That is exactly it, because, you know, it's unacceptable from your point of view. If you have a competitor, you have to feel you're doing more than him. So if Wilkinson is there, you know, the probably reality and truth of it is he was probably doing a double session. He probably did one at 7:30, and then he probably went again at 6:30. I would say that was, from what I experienced in 01, that is highly likely, because he loves to kick, has a great routine, and he just loves to kick. But yeah, from my point of view, that's why it was so great just to accelerate getting that at such a young age and being able to apply it then for the rest of your career. But I think what's crucial for any young sports person, I think, is the fact just about what reps in the bank mean. It means, I suppose, like years 18 to probably 24 are so crucial in improving your skill levels. And then, you know, I think it's like the golf as well. We changed our swinging in rugby, and I changed my kicking, tried to go to a power technique as opposed to a timing technique. And then essentially you just, I suppose, you find peace with yourself and you decide on what works for you, and then you apply it. But after a while it becomes ingrained in you, and you're able to kind of resource it when the most I suppose big pressure moments come. And that's what makes it so, I suppose, enjoyable, because it's very selfish in the fact that it's you and 80,000 people watching you, and this is your moment, and this is what you train for, and you kind of go bring it on. But at the start, you're kind of quivering.
I do wonder, obviously Johnny Wilkinson ended up having pretty horrific injury problems. Was any of that to do with overtraining and the fact that like he was doing double sessions when maybe, knowing everything we know now about sports science, somebody should have sat him down and said, you're going to have a much longer career, you'll be able to do more if you do less now?
Well, that's the benefit of hindsight too, Ger, isn't it? And the fact, as you say, the advances in sports medicine and everything like that. But especially the way he kicks, I think and a lot of the way they kick with the snaps, you know, it's sometimes they warm up and it's fixed, and it's big in New Zealand as well. I think with Mick Byrne and with Dan Carter and these kind of guys, a lot of it is very fixed in the fact that your kicking foot is planted and you're losing all of the kicking leg to get the strike right, which I wouldn't be a fan of, because for me it's a full body movement for kicking. I think when you can actually just push through the ball. But yeah, you know, I think someone like Johnny Wilkinson would have, and there was times when my quad was hanging off me, and basically it was just, you go down to, we were lucky in the fact that we had a brilliant masseur in Cork who basically like just spent his day getting knots out of my quad because it just had overkicked, but it was so painful, but you just loved it. That was your thrill. Because
we've been talking a good bit about this in the wake of Luke Keaney, the former Donegal footballer, who came into us.
Yeah.
Bad hips. And so, like, if you were coaching you now, right, knowing everything you know, would you have told yourself, if you had a 21-year-old who was the new Ronan O'Gara coming through, would you be warning him, like, you got to do a certain amount to make sure that your confidence and you've got the reps in, but you can't do too much to the point where your quad is hanging off and we need a bit of miracle hands?
Yeah. It's such a great subject because it was just so raw and natural in my time. There was no GPSs and the fact of kicking at the start, and there was no one measuring your reps. But like, I remember doing a lot of pre-season training in the summer with Munster and we ran, but it wasn't measured in that regard. But then at night time, I just loved to go kicking. But that wouldn't be allowed anymore because you'd be doing way over the kind of mileage and the clock that was required. But I suppose then, from a sporting point of view, you kind of encourage, the advice I give to younger players now is when you're having tough times in rugby or bad games or bad moments in games, what do you resort to? You need to have one aspect of your game that's really strong. And for me, I think that was probably going back to the spiral kick and being able to, you know what I mean, torpedo that ball to wherever, usually wherever I wanted it to go. And that was what I could draw on when real pressure hit me. But yeah, I suppose the advances in that regard have been huge, Jordan. It's been fascinating listening to, I suppose, all the debates on this programme from other sports people about their injury and their injury profile. And Dennis Leamy is another example of the hips as well. But I don't think for babies of that generation that there was checks done on them, because he had degenerative, I think, what's the medical term?
The labrum.
But he was born with the problem as opposed to developed from overtraining.
Born, exactly, and it wasn't diagnosed, I think, in the hospital in Tipperary at the time. And I think if you were aware of it at a younger age, it could have been done. But essentially, he has arthritic hips is the word I was looking for, and degenerative, and essentially everything was done. You know, with the best of medical power at that stage to try and correct him. But I think it was an issue from birth. And you look at, I suppose, nowadays with the medicals of people, all of that is kind of front-footed, and people have a good opportunity of knowing their body so much better. And, you know, there was examples of athletes from my team with Jamie Heaslip and with Donnacha O'Callaghan, like their body is their business, and they invested in their body, and it was very interesting to watch.
Yeah, it is weird how some people just win the genetic lottery and are going to be grand, and then others can do the exact same training and the exact same numbers of reps, and their body is incapable of doing it. And look,
yeah, because it was I was discussing it last night just with a few of the players coming home on the bus, just about you have Semi Radradra, the Fijian who's playing with Bordeaux, and he signed with Bristol, obviously, but like a lot of the guys in my team are going, well, imagine if you're Rad, you're over 2 meters tall, you're in 100 kg, you can run the 100 meters in about 10.3 seconds. But it's like the guys that are just born like that and can play, what a talent to have, and they make the game look easy, but as you say, there's a reason it is easy for them, because they're genetically blessed.
Yeah. A quick word about the Interpros, and probably didn't get a chance to watch too many of them.
No, I did. I actually saw the full Leinster-Ulster game, watched it in its entirety.
Yeah. We were chatting about it. I was saying, you know, like pretty exciting, lots of tries. That crossfield kick try is one of the great things that you're going to see all year. And Dave brought up the fairly brilliant concern that there are some lads here who are kind of sub-academy who are playing in this game, and it's not really that fair on them to be pitching them in against the seasoned internationals, that there's just a little bit of imbalance, you know, in their careers. They're probably not even getting paid properly just yet, and here they are being asked to represent one of our provinces in one of the biggest games, essentially one of the biggest games of the season, or supposed to be.
For playing for Ulster, is it?
Yeah, well, there would have been a couple, like Ethan McElroy, for example, who came on for Rob Little.
Yeah, I saw.
Like, he was playing Ulster Senior Schools Cup Rugby in March of this year, and it's a huge ask for someone like him to be coming up against the likes of a Max Deegan or a Josh van der Fleer, a Scott Fardy, for example. Is it, I could be wrong, that's what we're looking for your point of view on it. Maybe it's a great thing for them, but these guys aren't being paid much, and they're up against grizzled, gnarled World Cup final playing lock forwards like Scott Fardy.
Yeah, it is a great point. Another great point, I suppose, the fact is that, well, essentially, those games, for me, what the Irish model looks like now is you get ready for European Cup and you get ready for your test players. The Pro 14 without the relegation, it seems a little bit surreal that you have a game in the worst conditions of the year, and you have one team scoring 50 points and another team scoring 40 points. I don't think the Irish mentality knows about what relegation or what, you know what I mean, the English Premiership or the French Top 14. They're two dogs of a league, but two brilliant competitions to be involved in, because every game matters. In that competition, all the people would say the games matters, but for me, they don't matter. You prepare your team for European rugby and you prepare your teams for your test team, and everyone else fills in around those games then.
Is it damaging to the brand? Like, I understand from several point of views, there's mitigating factors this time around. It's on the back of a World Cup, which is only finished, 10 weeks ago, if even that, 6 weeks ago. You've got 4 Champions Cup rounds that have been crammed into a much smaller space on the calendar because of the World Cup. And then the player welfare kicks in. And you can understand Dan McFarlane trying to utilise his resources as best he can, because he's got Connacht and Munster at home in the next 10 days. He's up against probably the best club team in the world, or certainly the best club team in Europe, in Leinster, away from home. He's going to pick his team
in Europe,
right. I corrected that myself. But you can understand why he's picking the team he picked. But 14,000 people turn up at the RDS to see Ulster's second string, if even Ulster's second string. It's a really difficult balancing act. But they love it.
The supporters love it. Yeah, I get the balancing act, but I think the big point from people outside of Ireland is that it's not going to be a real league unless you have relegation. Like, what are the teams playing for? They're playing. One team is playing to win it. Few teams are playing to win it. But like, how many realistic winners are there? There's Leinster, there's Munster, and there's potentially
Glasgow, maybe,
on a good day.
Yeah, it's a big issue. It is a big issue. Like, I watch the Premiership quite a lot, and at times the quality is not there. And we saw what happened with Northampton's first team.
But the quality is there, I think, isn't there for a reason, because it's so result dominated.
Well, the depth isn't as great, is it, Ronan? Like, no, you scratch below the surface in these squads, and there's no depth.
Either in France, but like, you can't pick your games in England or France. It's just a constant grind.
Yeah, well, the point I was going to make is that every game is huge.
Yes.
And it's not only for the players, but for the supporters as well. It feels
for the
like
town,
a huge
I suppose, as well, isn't it? You can see that with people like, especially in the top 14, when teams like Brive or Cast or people like that, if there's any threat of potential relegation, it kills it kills the mood of the town, it kills the economy of that town as well. But maybe I've drifted off subject, but
you haven't really. Like, you'd mentioned places like Breve. I'm thinking Gloucester, Northampton, Exeter, Bath, rugby towns, in which the Premiership club is the centre of everything. And
exactly.
The prospect of playing in the English Championship, like the French situation you're discussing, it's unthinkable.
Yeah, it is.
And we just don't have that.
Absolutely. Well, no, and you won't have it in the current format. It just won't ever happen like that. It's the strength of the Irish, I suppose, game is that it's so good at getting itself ready for European Cup, and it's so good at preparing players for the national team. And that's exactly as you said. People coming at the weekend, we're looking at who potentially could play for Ireland or who could play a Champions Cup in the next few weeks for these both of these two teams. But in terms of winning the Pro 14 title, I think there is a fair bit of pride in the consistency of performance associated with Leinster and Munster. But other than that, for me, it's a very different mindset.
Last question then. Would you like to see a Premiership Pro 14 merger with two divisions, first and second division?
Yeah, I think it would be brilliant. Yeah, or if you can get something on like with travel nowadays, during capacity to charter flights, you know what I mean, you could make a European league.
I think a European league along the lines of the NFL is the most obvious thing, where you could have French conferences, so you keep the local derbies. And
why would the Premiership or Top 14 engage in that discussion?
For money, because they'll make loads more money from TV revenue.
Well, they make a pile of money as things stand at the moment. With the European Cup is an afterthought for some of these clubs.
But so you be
CVC haven't entered in this though yet, haven't they? They might come in and
that's what's going to change it. They're going to put a load of money in, pay the clubs, have a European Super League, the same as the exact same model really as the NFL, when there won't be relegation and everybody then can have a proper salary cap, and you can know that at the start of the year you're going to have this amount of money, and that's how it works.
The threat of relegation is what makes so many Premiership games interesting. I watch Exeter Leicester on Sunday.
No, Jared, that is so true. Definitely in France, it's such dog eat dog that relegation is just, it's a wonderful topic.
Right, we don't have time to get into it anymore, but I actually think that the relegation sometimes makes the games be crap, where the teams get scared to take a risk.
Stakes are so high.
Yeah, they do, but what is the replacement for that?
Have no relegation. Have 32 teams, and everybody knows that that's it. You're not going to be relegated. So you can. Everybody has to then invest in the team, invest in the players, and you have to be creative, and you have to try and qualify for the playoffs.
No, but you eliminate fear straight away. Fear is such a great subject among sports people. The minute you eliminate that, it becomes very different.
Look at the NBA and the NFL.
Your point about if the threat of relegation is removed, you will see more creative players and far more open, but that'll only be for so long, I think.
Maybe you could have relegation. Maybe you could have a sub-tier of other teams who are ready or willing to make it. Happy Christmas, Ronan.
Yeah, cheers, lads. Good to chat. Thanks again. See you, Dave.
See you, Ronan.
I don't know. I just think that there's loads of room there for a different European league to work. And actually, it has to go that direction. Or, sorry, it doesn't have to go that direction, because vested interest will prevent it from going that direction. But it's clear as the nose on our face that we've got these three leagues, none of which are... But the Premiership isn't working. All the clubs...
It's not working in that...
All the clubs are broke, they're all losing money.
But there are other reasons for that.
But
they're getting huge amounts of money in revenue from their TV deals.
All of a sudden, they're getting a huge amount of money from CVC, who have bought a stake in the league. If that hadn't happened, if there hadn't been a venture capital equity injected into it, they're all, I think one of them is break even. All of the rest of them...
Exeter were the only team in the Premiership last season to make a profit. But they're all private owners who are able to play this sort of fund, these sort of funds into the clubs.
Not forever.
Not forever, but unless you change the makeup of these clubs, it's the same with football. I mean, how many clubs are making a profit in football? But
in the Premier League, they all are now.
It's not an issue for these managers. But they're making their money from the Premier League. The money these clubs make from the Premier League TV rights far outweighs what clubs are getting in the Champions League.
Sure, but sorry, you said that...
And that's the way it is in the rugby at the moment as well. Ronan's right, you take away relegation. I watched that Leicester game. Leicester are second bottom, and they have Saracens chasing them down. And it's fascinating. Welford Road was heaving.
Yeah, it's fascinating this year because Saracens were deducted 25
No, it's
points.
fascinating every year because these
not.
clubs...
Mostly the relegation battles are rubbish.
They're not.
In the Premiership.
Newcastle and Worcester trying to avoid the drop last season was really interesting because every game is huge.
I don't know. I actually think that, I think that it's just a mindset, but that if there were 32 teams across Europe playing in the European League and you had local conferences, you'd still have all your local derbies, you'd have games that actually mattered for most of the season, and most teams have a chance of making the playoffs with 5 or 6 weeks left to go.
It'll lead to a whole pile of dead rubbers towards the end of the season, like we see in the NBA and the NFL every year.
It will, but so what? Those clubs then can be guaranteed to be profitable and to make money, and at that point they'll be able to invest in.
To what damage to the product, though?
The product will get better. The product will get much better.
I don't see how it gets better by adding to the potential for mismatches, adding to the potential for dead rubbers.
Are those slogfests between those two mediocre teams at the bottom of the league actually any good?
They're not always slogfests.
But the majority of those games are. I think we're romanticising relegation battles between crap teams on the basis that that's all we've ever known. And if we didn't know that, we'd be like, why are we sending this club down?
It's not all we've ever known. We've been watching it in Celtic League Rugby for the last 15 years.
And those teams play really well in playoffs and produce great rugby and produce great players who have their minutes managed. And it's been
the Irish teams.
It's been clearly
the Irish teams, not the Scots, the Welsh, or the Italians.
Well, the Welsh are getting there, and the Scots and the Italians are getting there.
Look at the Welsh regions; they're in tatters.
That's a different issue. That's not on the basis of the. That's on the chronic mismanagement at central level of Welsh rugby. And actually, they're getting better because they're starting to bring more players back. They've realised that they need to bring more players back to those teams. I don't think the absence of relegation has caused Scarlets.
From the Welsh point of view, it's a financial thing, and a European league would probably help the Welsh sides more.
Fix everything. It would fix everything.
No, it would absolutely not fix everything.
It would absolutely fix
that
everything.
Cannot be the final word on this debate. It would not fix everything.
9:07 this morning here. We're nearly done. We're going to take a quick eye break and we're back with Brian Carr for 1 minute.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station. Off the Ball 2019 IMRO Radio Awards Sports Programme of the Year.
Salah takes the shot. Oh, Mo Salah with one of the goals of the season. Who will see their dreams turn into reality? Whose names will be etched in history forever?
Offtheball.com, best online publisher at the 2019 Spider Awards.
A big breaking story on offtheball.com for you this morning. We have the very latest on the Mayo leaks. We now know what went on in that secretive Mayo County Board meeting.
2019 Irish Sponsorship Awards Best Radio Sponsorship, OTB Super Value GAA Roadshows.
Well, when she comes back, get your arse back here, he said. Star is out sitting on the swing and Darren O'Sullivan is pushing him.
OTB Sports Radio, live online 24/7 on the Go Loud app. This is OTB Sports Radio.
From music to rock out to, chill out to, and dance to. From sweater weather to workout playlists. Whatever mood you're in, Go Loud has music to match. Download the Go Loud app now or add us on your smart speaker. Go Loud. Podcasts, radio, and music to your ears. Go Loud!
OTB AM.
I think putting on the onus on the referee to take care of it is unfair, or for the referee to take on the role of the assessor of when he stops the game or has an interruption in the game or takes the players off the pitch. I think that's totally unfair. I also think it's unfair that it should be on the referee or on the players or the captain of a team, as it was when England were playing the matches and Harry Kane involved in Bulgaria earlier in the scene. I think it needs to be somebody else on the sidelines, an official who makes that call and tells the referee. But it's disgraceful, and Chelsea have had their own bother with those instances like that in recent years and had to ban supporters, and it's ridiculous. I mean, the number of number of black players who were playing in both teams today. It's how any supporter would go to a game and think it's okay to abuse a player because of his colour. No matter which team he's supporting, it's just ridiculous. I mean, the number of black players playing in either team, or whether it's because he's a white player or a black player, it's immaterial. It shouldn't be about anything to do with them in case of their appearance or their colour or anything else. It's just horrible, and I don't blame the Chelsea players for being upset, but then it's not acceptable because there was incidents in the match involving certain players that then the crowd abused them because of their colour. If they're abusing them because they made bad tackles and want to give them a bit of stick or reasonable abuse in relation to the performance in the match or actions they took in the game, but to add on the bit where it becomes down their colour, it's just disgraceful.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian Kerr there talking in the aftermath of the racism scandal yesterday, and obviously that's going to continue to roll on. We got these sent into us. We did it last week as part of our Best Menswear Christmas gift guide, which we hope some of you took some notice of. This is a Galway jersey. We're not sure what year the Galway one is from because it doesn't have a year on it, but
it's I'd say it's 1980.
Yeah.
It's not the one from 87 and 88.
The Dubs jersey has got a year on it.
That's 1983 every time.
That is 1983, yeah, with the stripes. These are from KC Sports in Mullingar. Richie was talking about vintage jerseys and gave them a shout out, so they sent some in for the studio.
It almost looked like Brian Mullins if you threw that on you.
Who's the number 10? Do you know?
And that Dublin team.
It's the one I didn't give you a hint or a tip.
Do you know Barney?
Would it be? Would he was in a full forward line? This Wexford one, I'm not sure of the year of this one either. I don't think the 95 jersey had the white patch number, which is one of my favourite things in GAA. The white patch numbers are amazing.
Yeah.
If I was throwing jerseys right now, it'd be white patch jersey, thanks very much. Even on the Kildare jersey, I'd somehow I'd go back to the all black kit that they had for like a wet week, and I'd have the white number and the black.
So yeah, I don't know who
white patch.
Who 14 would have been.
And then this one is Tipperary All Ireland hurling final. This is a glorious thing. 1991.
That's a thing of beauty.
And I was wondering, is it the Fat Fox, as Micheál once called him accidentally, Pat Fox? But no, it's not. Number 15 in the 1991 All Ireland final. It's the greatest corner forward of all time.
Yeah, Pat was always 13. Nicky always had 15, and the great Colin Bonner had, or Connell Bonner.
Colin was the full forward.
Was the full forward.
Connell was the wing back.
And the current what?
No.
Cormac Bonner full forward, and then Colin and Connell were the other two brothers.
Yeah.
The guy who used to wear the round helmet and had a couple of his teeth missing.
Yeah.
And the beard. Tip full forward.
Yeah,
so
he was the late bloomer. He came into the team late. The other two were like young stars.
He was a handful.
Colin and Connell were the half-back partnership either side of Bobby Ryan. That was a good team.
I'm getting all nostalgic here.
Yeah, so we'll stick them up at some point in our studio, unless Tommy decides that he needs some last-minute Christmas gifts for his family. Or himself. Right, Spurs against Brighton on the 26th on St Stephen's Day. It's Stephen Doyle and Brian Kerr. It's Bournemouth against Arsenal. Dave McIntyre and Shane Keegan on duty for that one. Arsenal against Chelsea on the 29th. Dave and Gary Breen for that one. Big game for Mikel Arteta. Liverpool against Wolves. Those Liverpool games are all now massive for the next 2 or 3 weeks, because that'll be the end of the season if they just win them. That'll just knock City out.
They get to the FA Cup weekend to double digits clear. It's done.
Yeah, Stephen Doyle and Brian Kerr on duty for that one. And that is pretty much all that we've got time for this Monday morning. We're live on air and online tonight from 7 o'clock. Obviously, you can subscribe to the OTB AM podcast, fully time-stamped every morning to make it very easy to find exactly what you want from every morning's 2-hour show. And remember, OTB AM is Ireland's first and only sports breakfast show. We upload all our best bits to YouTube. You can Chromecast that, or you can watch on your Apple TV or your Smart TV or your Sky Q or wherever it is that you want to stick on YouTube. We're going to wish you a happy Christmas now on OTB AM, because it's our final live show of the year. We're going to be bringing you some of our favourite moments from the year across Christmas and a few special one-offs. Johnny Kennedy was wondering what the story was with my Christmas jumper. I love my Christmas jumper. It is a thing of garish beauty. So for those of you who are listening on the radio, I've got a Colin Kaepernick Christmas jumper where it's got the worst picture of anybody I've ever seen of Kaepernick. But I hunted it down on the internet, and I bought it about 6 or 7 years ago.
Not garish. It's well down on the garish scale as regards Christmas jumpers.
Kitsch. It's kitsch.
Like, there are many that are far more of an eyesore that I've seen this Christmas season alone.
Yeah, they're intentionally. Mine, like, I'm kind of secretly happy with it, you know.
Yours is wearable.
I mean,
not quite wearable outside of Christmas, but not that far off.
Well, you know, bring it out for electric picnic and things like that.
It must be warm in the studio with that on.
It's very hot. It's too hot. It's like, unfortunately, not a skinny Christmas jumper. It's like a thick. You could actually properly wear it outside.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably warm for going to matches, but I live in Ireland, so don't really get to go to that many NFL games.
That many.
On that note, Dave, happy Christmas.
And to you, Ger.
And to everybody in the box thanks very much. To you lot, causing us trouble, pulling the faders down, pushing the faders up. Happy Christmas, guys.
And happy Christmas to our viewers and listeners.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Give us your abuse on Twitter, @OffTheBallAM. We'll see you next week and a half. Bye.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sport.